All right, you guys, we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to continue talking about Tropical Storm Bertha, which has now strengthened a bit. We also have to talk about the fact that we do have one model run here that is showing that it has an outcome of it becoming a hurricane, unfortunately. So we're going to go over that. Just, I'll break that down in a little bit. Give me a little bit of time. And of course, we have to talk about the impacts that we're going to be feeling regardless, right? So obviously, we have a lot to talk about. So let's jump right into it. Miss Peyton 29, thank you so much for being here once again. I hope your, what's today? Tuesday is going really well. I'm going to show you the models. I didn't know if you heard, but there is a hurricane model that is showing it, right? Now we're going to take it, we're not going to go too crazy about it, but there is a model showing that it does become a hurricane. So you see, that's why things change, right? So we're going to break all of that down and what that even means, in the grand scheme of things and everything. Elmo, what's going on? How are you? Thank you guys for joining. Let me see. I don't know why it only shows me the top chat. I want to see all the messages. Okay, cool. Perfect. Okay, guys, let's start off talking about what we're seeing right now on the satellite. So obviously it's grown in size if we compare it to last night, of course. It's still a very asymmetrical system. So here's the center. So you would expect not just cloud cover down here towards the south, but cloud cover to cover the entirety, around that eye, right? Around the center of the system. Now, obviously we don't have that on number one because we have wind shear, which is basically is just a fancy way of saying winds aren't that favorable in higher levels of the atmosphere for us to see that, right? So that's why we're seeing asymmetrical Bertha right now, which continues to be a tropical storm at this time. Elmo says, I'm good, been a while. I know, it's been a long time, but we're back. I was here last night. We're back again, and we're going to be talking about Bertha, okay? So, as of the latest advisory, it does currently have, I believe it's 60-mile-per-hour winds in the center of the system. So that's as of the latest advisory that came out at 7 p.m. Central Time. So that's the very, very latest. It's moving towards the west at 6 miles per hour right now. At this moment in time, it's 120 miles away from Panama City, Florida, 105 miles away from Mobile, Alabama. So yeah, that's what we're currently seeing right now in terms of the current stats. And if we go ahead and take a look at the radar, okay, you're going to kind of notice that we're not getting a ton of rain out of this because, of course, we're not really having a ton of cloud cover here to even produce that rain associated to Bertha. But we do have, and I'll zoom in a little bit, obviously some intermittent rain, even though the majority of the rain is down here. And obviously on radar, we're not really going to see a ton of rain offshore because our radars don't reach out that far. But we do have a little bit of rain out here. But actually on land, we just have these intermittent showers, right, related to the outer bands of the system that are moving onshore into the southeast. Now, Unnet channel, what's up, girl? Where you been? It's been a while. I know. Listen, life has been lifing, but we're back, okay? Thank you so much for joining today. So yeah, that's what we're seeing right now. We have rain that is coming onshore, but it's nothing too crazy at this time, okay? Now, a part of the reason for that, right, is that we do have lots of dry air. I already talked to you guys about the wind shear. But if we take a look at the water vapor imagery where you see here the blues and the greens and the whites, that is a lot of moisture, right? But here in the orange, that's dry air. So we also have dry air around that's affecting this system, right? That's number one. And then obviously the wind shear. But what we do have in favor, okay, are the very hot waters of the Gulf, okay? So where this is going to be moving through, which is going to be right towards the south of Louisiana into Texas, we're talking about water temperatures in the 80s and even the 90s, okay? So this is like a soup. So on one hand, we do have a couple of things working against the system, which is why we're not expecting it to blow up into a crazy hurricane, major hurricane. But we do have a couple of things that are still in our favor. And that's why, like I mentioned, I'm going to be showing you guys that model run that does show it becoming a hurricane. And it's a hurricane model. So that doesn't mean it's just one run. That doesn't mean that that's exactly what's going to happen. But the fact that it's starting to kind of like, the fact that we're even seeing that on a hurricane model at this point is a little bit concerning for me, because basically what that means is depending on where this thing goes, it may be on the stronger side and it may be on the weaker side. So if you live in a place, for example, like Texas, I wouldn't completely rule out something happening with this system just yet. Um, so yeah, we're going to talk about all of that throughout this live, okay? So like I mentioned, what we do have in favor is that. Now, when it comes to the wind field of this system, it's some of it is starting to, the tropical storm force winds are starting to arrive on shore here in parts of the Florida panhandle. But for the most part, the strongest of the winds are continuing to stay offshore at this time. So that's the good news there. Here's the track, okay? There's the track. And like I said, if you're inside of this cone, I would not be taking my eyes off this. And by the way, if you're new here, if you could please subscribe, that would be amazing. I would be so happy with that. Really quick, by the way, how can I'm trying to access my live stream here on YouTube, but it's not allowing me. Once again, it's just always the same problem. Wind or rain, maybe some gusty conditions here or there, but I don't think anything too crazy for you. Miss Peyton 29. Man, it's not letting me see what's going on my live stream. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have to pull it up on my phone, so that way we can actually know what's going on, and then we're gonna continue here. Okay, cool, awesome. So anywho, this is the track, okay? This is what we're expecting. So far, it's going to stay a tropical storm, okay? That's what the official National Hurricane Center is currently saying, that this thing does become it's going to continue to be a tropical storm as it continues to move towards the west. It generally is going to move towards the west, but obviously wobbling around here towards the south, right, to the south of Louisiana, and then turning up towards Texas. So that's what we're expecting in terms of the track, in terms of what the National Hurricane Center is expecting. Obviously, this is based off of the models, right, but models change. So that's why I'm going to show you guys the very latest models and what we could expect with that. But here's the current track. If we zoom in, we're talking about this system moving onshore potentially in southeastern Louisiana. So this includes places, for example, like Port Sulphur, potentially New Orleans, Houma, places like Franklin potentially seeing the strongest that this system has to offer, right? And then after that, it makes its way towards Texas, more than likely as a tropical depression, maybe even a tropical storm. And when could we expect this to arrive? I'm going to pull that up for you here because for whatever reason, my graphics don't want to work. But basically, this could potentially be making landfall. This would be by tomorrow afternoon in portions of southeastern Louisiana as it picks up in speed. And when it makes its approach to Texas, that would be basically very early Friday morning into the overnight hours. So basically Thursday night into Friday morning. Okay. Here are the latest spaghetti models, most of them kind of going along with that same track. So, you know, a couple of outliers here that have, and that's what we were kind of seeing yesterday, a couple of outliers that bring it up into the Florida panhandle, that bring it up into Alabama, as well as Mississippi. But the majority of the lines here, each line represents a different model. Majority of them clumping up towards portions of southern Louisiana and then into the Houston area. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you guys this right here, okay? This is the intensity guidance. What does this mean, okay? Basically, this shows us the different outcomes that we can have according to each model as we go forward in time. So this is time, right? 12 hours, 24 hours, right? And this is intensity in knots when it comes to the wind speed. Now, with that being said, most models are pointing towards it just being a tropical storm. But we do have a couple of models that are now starting to point towards a Category 1 hurricane. And that's why I'm saying things can change very rapidly. And that's why you guys have to subscribe if you haven't already, because we're going to be talking about those changes as we get closer and closer to this potentially getting on the stronger side. Okay, now that would happen if this tends to track even further towards the south. If this does have the opportunity, instead of kind of riding along where most of these lines are, if this does have the opportunity to go a bit further towards the south, avoid all the land interaction, right? Maybe it could become a stronger storm, potentially a category 1 hurricane. Okay. Now, if it stays towards the north and it goes over Louisiana, right, or stays over Louisiana most of the time, it's going to fall apart very rapidly. It's never going to have a chance to actually become a hurricane. Okay. Team Outlier, girl, I know you want this to become a hurricane. I could already tell. Hopefully it doesn't, because we don't want anybody to be dealing with a hurricane, right? But yeah, that's what we're currently seeing right now when it comes to, this system. If it stays towards the north, it's going to be over land. We're not going to really see too much. If it stays towards the south, it's going to have a better chance to potentially strengthen before making landfall in Houston or in Texas along the coastline in general. Okay. Now, because of obviously the impacts that we're expecting moving forward, we are already under tropical storm warnings here in the Florida Panhandle into portions of coastal Mississippi and Alabama, as well as portions of southeastern Louisiana. This does include New Orleans, for example, under that tropical storm warning, and then into places closer to, let's say, Lake Charles, right, or right outside of there, we're under a tropical storm watch at this time. Storm surge could potentially be an issue as well. We're talking about, if everything lines up and at high tide, 2 to 4 feet of storm surge that may be possible in portions of southeastern Louisiana, where we know it floods very easily, into portions of the Mississippi coastline. Now, from the Mississippi-Alabama border into the Florida Panhandle, we're talking about 1 to 3 feet, which is also going to be the case here from the mouth of the Mississippi River in southeastern Louisiana into Cameron in Louisiana. So that would be extreme western Louisiana along the coastline. So 1 to 3 feet of storm surge, which could be possible with this system, which basically, what's storm surge? It's not flooding that happens because of rain. It's flooding that happens because the system, the winds, push the rain from the Gulf onshore and cause that flooding. Okay, so we do have those storm surge watches and warnings that are currently in effect for this area as well. And speaking of the water, tomorrow is not the best time to head to the beaches in Tampa or along the entire, basically the majority of the Florida coastline here, along the Gulf Coast, because that rip current risk is going to be very high due to just Bertha being out there in the Gulf. Okay, so I would completely avoid that. Now, we do have the chance of seeing some flash flooding into tonight with these intermittent bands coming onshore, but I don't think it's very likely. We have so much dry air that really the majority of the rain associated with the system continues to be offshore, but we do still have that isolated chance of seeing some flash flooding, isolated flash flooding in portions of Florida into Louisiana, including New Orleans, Mobile, as we head into tonight. For tomorrow, that shifts slightly more towards the west to include portions of central Louisiana, and on Thursday, we're talking about that same sort of area, but a bit further inland to include places like Mississippi and Alabama, a bit more inland in those states. Okay, so that's what we're seeing right now. Cien perdido, nope. What are you saying nope to, sir? Okay, really quick, I do want to show you guys some of the models, and I'm going to show you guys that model that does show it becoming a hurricane, unfortunately. Let's go there now. We're going to first look at the hurricane models. Okay, so I'm going to bring you guys over here. Right now, we're looking at the HWRF model. If you're not too familiar with, looking at models, this just tells us what could potentially happen in the future. Okay, let's try to get this ad out of the way. Okay, we don't want to see whatever the heck that was right there. A baby, or I don't even know what it's showing right now. Anyways, so here is the latest HWRF model. And I'm going to show you guys really quickly what this is currently showing at this time. So this has it basically staying a tropical storm and kind of meandering over or towards southeastern Louisiana as we head into tomorrow afternoon, kind of skirting the coastline. You see how it manages to stay on land here in Louisiana, which makes it weaker. So the higher this number is right here, the weaker it is. So at over 1,000 millibars, that's tropical depression status there. And then it goes over Texas and it eventually falls apart. So that's one of the major hurricane models showing that. Okay. So kind of similar to what we're seeing with the official track. Now, I do want to show you guys that model that I was talking about that does show potentially a hurricane forming, okay? So here we go. With this one, you're going to notice it kind of goes over as a tropical storm as we head into tomorrow, into the afternoon hours. It kind of goes over portions of southeastern Louisiana very briefly, but then after that, as we head into tomorrow night, manages to stay over the Gulf waters, okay? With that being said, it takes a more southerly track and stays over the water. This number in the middle here starts to drop. We're talking about 984 millibars. That's already pretty much category 1 status when we talk about hurricane status. And that would be heading towards Thursday, okay? So that's why I don't want to completely rule out the chance of this actually becoming a hurricane, because it's not completely out of the question, unfortunately, depending on how this thing tracks. And already compared to what we were talking about yesterday, we are already seeing that the official track from the National Hurricane Center has shifted a bit more towards the south. Okay, so what does that mean? We can't completely rule out that this ends up becoming a hurricane. Okay, we're going to go forward into time a little bit more, okay? Look at this. The number drops even more. You see all these lines, okay, that these are pressure lines, right? Lines of equal pressure. Basically, the tighter these lines are together, the stronger this could potentially get. We're talking about 970 millibars here with this last hurricane run. So this shows it making landfall. This would basically be overnight into Friday in portions of, this would be Texas, right? So Galveston, Houston would be up here, so a bit further towards the south, a bit closer to, for example, Corpus Christi, okay? Makes landfall as a hurricane, because 971 millibars, you're getting a hurricane for sure, okay? So that's why in Spanish we say no me fío. I don't trust that this is just going to be, you know, okay, just a tropical storm and that's it. That's the more than likely scenario. But look at this, the HMON model. And by the way, this is just a few days out and it's showing this. I don't want to sleep on that yet, which is why I don't want to say, hey, it's just going to be a tropical storm, guys. Everybody, it's just going to be like a regular day in the summer with rain. No. Look at what the HMON model is showing right now. Okay? We're blasting it with the Golden Dome satellite razors. I don't know what that is, but hey, whatever you can do hopefully this doesn't happen, then okay. I'm in where Central Florida 2024 was a crazy hurricane season here. Yeah, that's true. I'm in Southeast Florida and it was crazy because I have family in Central Florida and they came down, and then it was just a lot going on over there. They were telling me that, there was flooding and the electricity going out and everything. It's just not a fun time to deal with hurricanes, man. Yeah, Central Florida was a little bit crazy. But it's fun. It's fun to have family over visiting you in South Florida for a few days. It's lit. You get what I'm saying? It's super fun. But anyway, so with that being said, that's what the H1 model is showing right now. Now, I'm kind of, let's go back. What's the previous run of this same exact model show? Let's see, hold on. Because that's the 8, okay, see, the previous run was also showing this too, which is a little worrisome. So okay, it's the same model, right? But this is an earlier run from earlier today, okay? So these run a few times a day and they have different outcomes, right? So this shows it also coming in as a hurricane, Thursday night into Friday morning in Texas, all right? So that's what we have here with this. I'm hesitant to show the halves A model because it's kind of been bugging out a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, it's doing that weird thing. I think this model doesn't even know what planet we're on, I think. All right. Well, let's see. The GFS. We can look at some of the global models to see what they're showing. Why not? Let's see. Southeast. Let's come over here to the southeast. That way we have a closer view. So, taking a look at the Euro, yeah, showing what the National Hurricane Center is basically forecasting. Moving onshore into southeastern Louisiana as a tropical storm, it stays on land, doesn't have time to really strengthen too much. So it stays on the weaker side, stays as a tropical storm. And then taking a look here, the GFS kind of showing the same outcome. Let's take a look at the Euro AI. Stays weak. Tropical storm. The AI GFS model, also very weak. So pretty much all of the global models are kind of showing the same thing here. Crashes into Louisiana, stays on land. That's the Canadian model. And then we'll take a look at the Icon model. Yeah, same idea, guys. So that's what these models are showing. But, I don't know, that H1 model is kind of scaring me a little bit. Let's see. The 18Z run, which was the latest run, is showing this. The 12Z was also showing this. Let's look at the 6Z, which is even earlier. It's been really consistent. Now, again, this is just one model. We're not going to go off of one model and one run and say, hey, it's going to become a hurricane. This is what I think, okay? I'm still with what I said yesterday. 80% chance this stays a tropical storm. Maybe I'll drop it down to 75% chance. 75% chance this stays a tropical storm. 25% chance it becomes a hurricane. Because, guys, listen, okay? I know that we're dealing with the with the unfavorable environment for hurricanes. I know that we're dealing with the dry air, right? Which we can see here. And I'll show it to you guys. We have the dry air all around this system, but it's still staying alive. Why is it staying alive? Because the water temperatures are ridiculous. Okay? The water temperatures are ridiculous. This is serving as fuel. So all it really needs is to continue to survive, not go on to land. It already has 60-mile-per-hour winds in the center of the system as of the latest advisory. Look at this. We've got the waters that it's going to be going over in the 80s and the 90s. It's just super hot here in the Gulf of Mexico. And by the way, with that being said, I think that I know that we're supposed to have a below average hurricane season this year in the Atlantic, but I feel like if we do have any storms, they'll probably pop up here because this is the most favorable, it's the closest to land, has a better chance of moving onshore before shear completely destroys it. So that's what I'm thinking when it comes to this system. Okay. I guess they're saying there might be quite a hurricane season this time around, probably for the best because that freeze back in February was crazy. Yeah, I mean, it is supposed to be a below average hurricane season this year. It is. So that's the good news. But look, below average, we're just in July and we're already seeing this with Bertha. I don't know. That's why I'm saying I don't trust it. I don't completely trust it, you guys. Okay. But yeah, there you go, guys. This is Bertha continuing to survive everything, right? Survive these conditions that aren't the greatest, okay? So basically, we'll go over everything really quickly once again so that you guys could kind of get a recap, okay? Here's Bertha, tropical storm, 60-mile-per-hour winds, okay? Mid-range tropical storm, okay? Slightly above mid-range, okay? Right now, you're going to notice that on satellite, it has a very asymmetrical appearance to it. Normally speaking, we'd have cloud cover all the way around the center. Clearly, we're not seeing that right now. And this has to do with the wind shear, okay? Northerly wind shear that is continuing to just beat this thing up. That's why we have most of the activity towards the south of the center. And of course, we also have lots of dry air that is continuing to affect this system as well, which we can see here in the orange. Now in the blues and the greens, that's moisture, and the whites also, that's moisture. The orange, that's dry air. So dry air that's continuing to affect the system. Now, what does it have in its favor? Obviously, the waters that we spoke about, very warm waters in the Gulf, which that's what's going to bring us, that basically serves as fuel, right? That's our hurricane fuel. That's our hurricane juice for this thing to just continue to survive at the very least. Maybe it won't get too much stronger. But again, all of that depends on the track, okay? Because right now, the track has shifted a bit more towards the south in comparison to what we saw yesterday, right? And if it continues to stay towards the south and the Gulf of Mexico, we can't completely rule out a hurricane forming. And we actually have a model that is showing a hurricane forming, and it's really adamant throughout the day today that a hurricane might form and hit Texas. Okay. So with that being said, okay, we're going to go over that once again for everybody very quickly. But like I mentioned, just this on satellite, this doesn't look great because it's very asymmetrical. Now, even though it's very dry and we have that dry air, right, affecting the system, we do have these very skinny outer bands that are affecting places like Georgia, like Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana as well. Okay. And right now, the wind field that's related to this system is mostly offshore. So the tropical storm force winds are right here in the blue and the purple. And these are remaining offshore with the exception of some coastal areas here in the panhandle of Florida, feeling some of those tropical storm force winds at this time. Now, here is the track, okay? Here's the track. It's taking it towards the west, okay? And the official National Hurricane Center track is showing that it stays a tropical storm the entire time. It's going to cross over southeastern Louisiana, then move into Texas as a tropical storm, potentially a tropical depression. Now, that might change. That might change because of some of the models that I'm telling you, that I'm going to show you, are showing it becoming a hurricane, not prior to reaching Louisiana, but prior to reaching Texas and hitting the Gulf Coast there. Okay? So if this would more than likely move on shore in Louisiana, this would be as we head into tomorrow, right? Tomorrow afternoon. And then if this moves on shore into Texas, this would be as we head into Thursday, Friday. All right. Here are the spaghetti models. Okay. So you're going to notice that all of them cluster up right here as it goes towards Louisiana, and then kind of agreeing with that National Hurricane Center official forecast. Okay. Most of these models keep it here in the tropical storm region. Couple of the models, not many, bring it up here to category 1 status. Okay. So, like I mentioned, we're going to talk about that. Now, watches and warnings are already in effect, obviously. Tropical storm warning from the Florida Panhandle into portions of southeastern Louisiana, including New Orleans. Tropical storm watch in places, for example, like the central and more western coast of Louisiana and even parts of Mississippi as well, a bit further inland. Storm surge could potentially be an issue with this. We're talking about 2 to 4 feet of potential storm surge, and that's going to be the case from the mouth of the Mississippi River in southeastern Louisiana into basically the Mississippi coastline. If everything lines up at high tide, we're talking about 2 to 4 feet of storm surge that could be possible, and that could be life-threatening, okay? I'm 5'2", okay, so that would basically come up to here on me, all right? So that is potential in the worst case scenario in the hardest hit spots if this all does come together. Elsewhere, we're talking about 1 to 3 feet for the rest of the Louisiana coastline, and that's also the case for the Alabama coastline and portions of the Florida Panhandle coastline as well. Rip currents are going to be an issue, so even if we're not getting direct impacts, for example, in places like Tampa and in southwest Florida, in the Florida Panhandle, we're talking about high rip current risk just because Bertha is out there, that they could pull you out to sea and it could be really dangerous. I would completely avoid the beaches as we head into tonight. If you're planning on going to the beach tonight, I don't know why you would, and especially as we head into tomorrow as well. Now, I would say that the main concern, if we see anything, it's flash flooding with this. Okay, so tonight we're talking about from Louisiana into the Florida Panhandle with that threat. It's a level 1 out of 4, so it's not anything too crazy. That's going to be the case as we head into tomorrow as well. This includes places like New Orleans, Mobile. We're talking about places like right outside of Tallahassee as well. And even into Thursday, this is going to continue as we head into Louisiana as well. Now, I'm going to show you guys some of the models, okay? And I'm going to show you guys hurricane models first, which I'm going to show you right now. Let's come over here so that we can talk about this, which we just spoke about not that long ago, okay? And really quickly, I'm going to go over the chat. I just want to get over my recap really quickly, and then I'll go over the chat. Thank you guys for asking questions. You guys are amazing. Okay, HWRF model showing this staying on the weaker side, so staying a tropical storm, so in agreement pretty much with the National Hurricane Center forecast, and kind of, I would say, skirting the coastline here in Louisiana. But because it manages to stay onshore according to this model and this model run, because it manages to stay inland, right? You see how this number goes up? It goes up to 1,000. It was 900 something. Now it's 1,000. That means it stays weaker. So that's why I'm saying if it takes a more northerly track, it stays weaker. It stays a tropical storm. Now let's see. The model that I was telling you guys is showing a potential hurricane forming because this takes a more southerly track. If it takes a more southerly track, it's going to avoid, right? It's going to avoid land interaction. It's going to stay over the very warm waters of the Gulf, which serve as fuel. So even though it's fighting dry air, it's fighting it's fighting wind shear, which basically is a fancy way of saying that the winds in the higher levels of the atmosphere aren't as favorable for hurricanes to develop, right? It's still going to be over very warm water. Okay, so with this one, you're going to notice much less land interaction. Take a look at the number in the middle here, 994, right? We move forward into time. It very briefly touches land as we head into tomorrow afternoon. Okay, very briefly touches land in southeastern Louisiana, but then it continues to stay south. Look at this. This is land over here. This is Louisiana. This is not land. This is the Gulf. Okay, you're going to see how as it heads towards Texas, look at how that number starts dropping. We have these black rings start to get closer and closer together, much tighter together, right? As we move forward into time, and this continues to stay over these ridiculously hot waters. The number drops to 970 something millibars. That is definitely a hurricane, 100%. This is a category 1 trying to get close to a category 2 hurricane. All right? And this shows it making landfall along the Texas coastline. This would be basically Thursday night into Friday early morning into the overnight hours. Okay? So this is just one model. Now, it is a hurricane model, so that's why I give it a little bit more weight, because these models, they tend to manage the dynamics of a hurricane much better than a global model is. It's going to take, all the dynamics of a hurricane into account, whereas a global model is not going to do that as well. That's why I give it a little bit more weight. Now, it's just one hurricane model. The other one is also a hurricane model, the one that I showed you right before this one, that's showing, hey, no big deal, it's going to stay a tropical storm, and it's going to stay over land, so we're just going to see things, basically we're going to see things fall apart with this system. But this one is showing something else, which is why I don't want to completely rule it out. At this point in time, what am I expecting? Louisiana is going to get a tropical storm. I don't foresee it becoming a hurricane before making landfall tomorrow. But Texas, I don't know. You might get nothing. It might fall apart before it arrives, or you might get a tropical storm or a hurricane. That's why we can't completely rule it out. At this point in time, Texas, this is what I'm thinking, okay? I'm thinking 75% chance this stays a tropical storm. You're not going to have to deal with this or tropical depression. Basically, a much weaker system. 20 to 25% chance that maybe it becomes a hurricane before it reaches you. The only reason why I'm a little bit worried with this hurricane model is because all the previous runs are showing the same exact thing. So this is the latest run that we have, which is at 18Z, which is Zulu time. That's the latest run, okay? The one prior to that showed the same exact thing, The one prior to that one showed the same exact thing. So 970 something millibars moving on. This is even, see, that's the thing. Look, with this one, with the 6Z run, which is 2 model runs ago, this drops the number down even more to 960 something, which is why I start to become a little bit worried with this, because the further south it stays, the less land interaction, the more time it has to stay over the warm waters. So even though it's going to be fighting those environmental factors that we've already talked about, it gets even stronger. 968, now we're talking about category 2, status potentially. So Louisiana, I don't think you're going to have a big deal with this, honestly, especially because the majority of the rain is to the south. So if the center tracks, let's say the center tracks, let's go back to the other hurricane model so I can show you guys. Louisiana, if the center tracks for you guys, to the south, look at this, it's super to the south. Look at all the majority of the rain stays to the south. So it might just be for you guys tomorrow and into Thursday, a windy day with a little bit of rain. Maybe some storm surge though. That's the problem, right? Because this is such a lopsided system. I mean, look at this. I'm going to show you guys once again on the satellite. Because it's such a lopsided system, look, all the activity is to the south. It's over the Gulf. It's not a problem. Okay? But obviously we can't rule out some rain, some excess. We've already talked about it. Flash flood threat, that's going to continue for you guys as well. And by the way, you guys, if you do happen to be new here, that would be amazing if you guys could subscribe. Oh, 2 people subscribe. Guys, look, I'm only 4 subscribers away. 4 subscribers away from 2,500. So if you guys subscribe, I'll love you forever. And I'm going to shout you out in the chat. Okay? So as we were saying, speaking of the chat, let's talk about it. Let me see the chat really quick. You want some rain and maybe some wind. Miss Payton 29, listen. I think that you just want some action. That's what it is. You want to be able to say, "Oh, I was affected by Bertha. I was affected by a tropical storm." I think that that's what you want. I think you want something to happen. Cuz I mean, honestly, growing up in South Florida, I went through the 2004, 2005 hurricane seasons, and I'm not going to lie, when I was a kid, I got excited when hurricanes came. But when I got older, well, and the main reason why I was excited was because I would get school off. One time I had 2 weeks off, 2 weeks, and there was no electricity for those 2 weeks either, which was kind of cool. But anyways, hi Jessica, good to see you. Just getting here. It all depends on whether it goes over the loop currents or not. So yes, there's a possibility that it could become a hurricane. Exactly. Stays further to the south, becomes a hurricane potentially. Okay. Is Boston GA in the threat? No. Boston GA, you're completely fine. I think the most you'll see is some windy conditions, and it's really going to be kind of like tonight, maybe tomorrow morning, and then just some rain bands moving in intermittently. That's what I'm expecting. If Bertha becomes a hurricane, it'll be the worst looking one I ever saw. Yeah, it looks weird. But if it does become a hurricane, the likelihood is that it'll probably be a little bit more organized than what it looks right now. Because right now it looks a mess. I'm not gonna lie. Miss Payton 29, yes. H1 is the oldest model, but for it to lock in on something for that long, it's pretty interesting, especially being El Nino, Super El Nino this year. Yeah, I mean, exactly. We're supposed to be having a slow hurricane season. So, but like I mentioned before, I feel like if we do see hurricanes pop up or tropical storms pop up this year, it's going to be right here where we're seeing Bertha. Because it's just the waters are extremely hot. The waters are very, very hot. They're very warm. All right. Okay, so I did my little recap. I think we kind of went over everything. I'm going to be back tomorrow for sure. So we'll talk again tomorrow. We'll talk about all the latest. Thank you guys for being here once again tonight. You guys are awesome. You guys are amazing. Miss Payton, Unknit Channel, Eddie, everybody, Mike. You guys are awesome. Thank you guys for being here. Tomorrow we'll have an update, and I'll let you guys know what changes. And remember, things could change. Things could change. Look at the hurricane model. Yesterday, The H-Mon was not showing that. I'll tell you that much. The H-Mon model was not showing a hurricane going to Texas. It just wasn't. So, yeah, that's why I'm saying things could change. And the track already shifted south. So if it continues to shift south, we could see a completely different situation for Texas, unfortunately. Okay? Leaving already? No. Listen, I've been live for 39 minutes already. Oh my God. Let me see. Julio, thank you so much, Julio. By the way, if you're new here, please subscribe. We're going to be going live. I'll be able to answer your questions, answer the chat, all that type of stuff. It'll be lit. It'll be fun. But yes, I hope a very well rest of your night. Peace, my girl. Thank you so much. I'm about to go to sleep early tonight. Okay, I'm tired. And obviously we'll stay on longer if this ends up, obviously the closer that we get to this, if this ends up getting, we're expecting it to become a hurricane, especially, we'll probably do much longer lives, more than likely. So we'll stay on for a longer period of time, and that way more people come in. But yeah. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. You guys are amazing. I will see you guys mañana, which if you don't know what that means, it means tomorrow in Spanish. Ciao.